A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajeem. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. I begin, as I always begin, in the name of Allah, whose grace I seek in this and all other matters. What a week, huh? Today is the new moon. The new moon is in the sign of Aquarius, and this is the new moon that the Chinese calendar considers the beginning of the year. As such, I will be having small group sessions this weekend, and we will be talking about our intentions going forward, inshallah. It just so happens that this week I finally met with university officials here at the National Islamic University in Jogjajarta about my position and also about some events that we are going to plan to sort of introduce me to the community that I'm here. And I had a strange kind of coordination, synchronicity of events in that I have not had a copy of my second book, Inside the Gender Jihad, for years. And I got my student assistant to actually give me a copy of the PDF. And I was reading through the chapter on the creation, the necessity for, and the methodology that I recommended for the creation of Muslim women's studies as a discipline in the context of US academia, because that was the context where I was teaching for so many years and where it occurred to me that we needed to have this, and also the problems that ensued by not having it. And so I had quite a few interesting anecdotes that, I read through, some detail of, just as I had a meeting with the rector of the National Islamic University of Jogjajarta planned in his office. Everybody's social distance, we wear a mask, but, we just sit around and distance and kind of chat. And I learned some interesting things, which I'm not going to dwell on now, but really I'm going to continue to reflect on, about the critical and intersectional intention of the first rector of the National Islamic University in Jogjajarta. And so the legacy that I come into, which allows me to be welcome at this institution at the highest level, by the rector, with enthusiasm. And yet, I retired from US academia in 2006. I knew it was coming, so I made certain plans in order to put things, in order. One of the plans was that when I left the campus, I did not leave the position. Instead, I took a leave. And during the time of the leave, I had my portfolio under evaluation for consideration of promotion to full professor. I did manage to be promoted to full professor, but there was a glitch along the way. And the glitch is very interesting because in every promotional evaluation, there were 3 facets of the portfolio that has to be examined differently. They usually ask one member of the evaluating committee to do each of these sections, and that is scholarship and research. That obviously includes publication, but also the impact of the particular candidate's work in their field. Teaching, and teaching includes not only the repertoire of the teaching, but also public teaching and student evaluation and service. Traditionally, women and non-white academics are called to service more than their white and male counterparts, and yet it is often not recognized. In fact, a person cannot be promoted on the grounds of service. And also for my portfolio, in addition to the sector on public teaching, I had to make a special case for the appreciation of the public service that I do, because I had come to the university after I had begun my distinguished participation in activism for social justice in Islamic context. And so I kept an ongoing relationship internationally with issues related to my academic field. But I was on the initial run through from the committee, rejected by a vote against my scholarship. And I don't want to dwell on this because, you know, everything about the past to me is past. But the person who reviewed, who was responsible for that part, reviewed my copious numbers of publication, way more than he had actually, and made only one comment, literally, and that was that my second book, same one I'm rereading myself right now, had editorial mistakes, a number of them, and he said 0 about the content, he said 0 about the discipline, and he said 0 about you know, the topic of this discussion inadvertently, which was that one of the reasons why I left is that I did not see the establishment of new knowledge in Islam as part of US academia. And in particular, I recognize Islamic feminist thought as an area of new knowledge that, you know, I just couldn't see how long it would take before it would get established in the context of the US. And I left a job, which, I mean, I have to remind people, my upbringing was very poor. My father, you know, never made as many as $20,000 a year. And yet, you know, we were 8 children, and he was a benevolent patriarch who did not want my mother to work. So that meant that he was going to contribute all financially needed in order to raise that many children. And so we, you know, experienced, you know, homelessness, being evicted, lack of food, no means to be able to buy heat. I mean, you know, experienced all those things growing up. So how could I, the only member of those 8 children who received a university degree, let alone 3 of them, Bachelor's of Science, Master's, and a PhD, how could I leave a job at an institution that did not require of me 40 hours a week? I mean, didn't have to clock in and then clock out after 8 hours every day for 5 days a week. And yet I earned more than, once again, my, you know, my other 7 brothers and sisters as an annual salary. And had benefits that none of them ever had. One brother worked for the post office, had some retirement benefits, but didn't have health benefits. They didn't have that then. Didn't have life insurance policy. They didn't have that then. So there's certain benefits and a great salary, and yet a very low amount of contact hours that were necessary in a job. How would I leave that job except that I really felt the situation was hopeless in terms of my aspirations, you know, as a Muslim, as a woman, as a hijabi, as a Black person, as a US citizen, etc. How could I leave that except that I really did, you know, see it as hopeless? And rereading that chapter with some of the anecdotes of the experiences that I had, it's simply trying to get different sectors of US academia to consider the necessity and yet the tenuousness of an area such as Muslim women's studies. And finally they got it. And so we do have Muslim women's studies, we have degree granting programs, we have subsections of the professional groups. It came about. I mention all that because my contract here includes the line item for the creation of queer Islamic studies and theology. And I am very enthusiastic about this possibility to be at a National Islamic University in a Muslim majority country. And when I was in the meeting with the rector, I was even more optimistic that this is going to come about because it's time. It's just time. The detailed consideration of matters of sexuality in traditional Islamic thought, notwithstanding, because that's already enough to say that it should already have been there. Notwithstanding the intellectual, what Ramon Grosfogo calls epistemicides, the grotesque violation of intellectual thought that was a consequence of colonialism, creating for many people in the world in their academic and educational ventures a kind of catch-up against a standard that isn't sometimes even relevant to them, but against which they've always been measured, instead of a loving relationship that nurtures and enhances their own intellectual repertoire, their own epistemologies, cosmologies, theologies, and the like. We're still scrambling with that. So we missed on sustaining the trajectory of critical engagement with matters of sexuality and sexology that existed in Islamic traditional thought, through that transition to colonialism and the post-colonialism, phases that we're still grappling with. So not only is it part of our tradition, but we have this new and exciting sort of ethical consideration about identity. So I am very, very excited about this. I know it doesn't seem it. I'm so excited that sometimes I just, I just can't contain myself. And the reason why I can't contain myself is that I have to balance my enthusiasm with the fact that I'm very frustrated about my inability to move forward. And the reason I can't move forward is because it's not about me and because I'm not competent in terms of administrative stuff. I have had a very low success rate in terms of applying for grants. Literally, I've only applied for 3 in my life. And, even though I got them all, I still feel like that's not my forte. And yet, obviously, funding as well as administrative coordination between supporting institutions has to go about. And so far, I keep bringing up the subject and I keep getting nice letters from people, but I'm not getting the technical stuff to really start hammering out the details of what this would mean. But the good news is this new moon, new Chinese New Year of the Ox, me starting a new contract, which is for initially for 2 years. Nevertheless, I can feel the wind of change. I can feel that, there's a kind of breeze that's turning the leaves around in the yard. I can feel that it's going to happen, which is not the feeling that I had when I left US academia, feeling frustrated about the impossibility of Muslim women's studies, when I definitely knew that my dedication was going to be in that area. So it is an interesting full circle where the circle went around and, kind of elevated itself from the expressions of frustration with regard to the absence of critical understanding of the necessity of Muslim women's studies as its own discipline in the under the umbrella of Islamic studies, which I consider to be a requisite, because people are always displacing Muslim women relative to other, sort of real and imagined intersections or lack thereof with other women. The frustration led to a major move on my part. 15 years I've been retired, And as I enter back into academia with the level of acceptance that I experience here, it's interesting to have this trajectory in my mind, this, objective to help create queer Islamic studies within academia, let alone at an Islamic institution in a Muslim majority country. I'm very excited about the potential, even though all I can see from here are just hills to climb. And that is because it really is time. It really is time. Again, I will just close by saying thank you to my queer Muslim family and allies for sustaining the momentum towards the well-being and integration. And you are my hope and inspiration. And it is my hope that I will be able to participate meaningfully in bringing this into reality, so that your identities will be respected at the level at which it is deserved and in which the Quran has already given. When it says, "Laqad karamna bani Adam," I have given karama, or dignity, to the sons and daughters of the first human person, that is Adam. That is the trajectory that my research and spirituality is based on with regard to this matter. And I hope you will, well, first of all, any suggestions that you have along those lines, any ways in which you feel that you can support, please do let me know. But I'm going to keep working at it until, it does manifest. And in the meantime, thanks and happy new moon and happy year of the ox. Assalamu alaikum.